Okay, welcome to the Halacha Shir. This week we normally, of course, choose a topic which is related somehow to the coming Parsha, but this Shabbos, of course, there is no Parsha, it's Yom Kippur. So I've chosen a topic which relates to Yom Kippur, something which I'm often asked about and a question that is on people's minds in terms of what footwear, what shoes can and cannot be worn on Yom Kippur. What types of shoes are prohibited on Yom Kippur? So let's take a look at this. This is the big question. Can you wear Crocs? Can you not wear Crocs? Trainers, not trainers? Let's explore this. And if you're listening online, please email me at j.golker@gmail.com and I'll send you the handout. The first source is the Gemara in Yuma. It's the Mishnah on features on the Daf Ein Gimel Amud Beis. And the Mishnah there says, Yom HaKippurim Osa Ba'achil V'Shtia the 5 inuyim, the 5 prohibitions of Yom Kippur. Number 1 is eating and drinking, that's the first one. Second of all is rechitza, washing. Sicha is anointing with oil or similar things. Or ni'ilas hasandal, wearing shoes. Uv'tashmish hamita, and marital relations. So those 5 things are the 5 inuyim as codified by the Mishnah there in Yuma. The Shulchan Aruch paskins this in Siman Tov Resh Yud Aleph. Umahim advarim hasurim boy. What are the isurim on Yom Kippur? Melacha, of course. In addition to the 5 inuyim, you can't do melacha like on any other Shabbos or Yom Tov. Achila, you can't eat and shtia. That's considered one of the inuyim. Rechitza, washing. Sicha, anointing yourself with oil. Ni'ilas hasandal, v'tashmish hamita. So those are all brought in the Shulchan Aruch. And interestingly, the Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaber adds, "Ve'ein chiyuv kares el al melachas v'achila v'shtia." But the chiyuv kares only relates to doing melacha on Yom Kippur or on eating and drinking. What exactly is the status of the others? Is it osam in Torah or is it only osam in Rabbanon? So the Mishnah Berurah on the spot here says, "Avol inach ein bohem ele isura gereda mikol makom yeshor mishum in Torah." Some say that it actually isn't Issa min Torah, it's just that there's no chorus, but it's still awesome in Torah. After all, says the Mishnah Berurah, because the Gemara derives the other prohibitions from Psukim, which suggests, of course, that it's awesome in Torah. That actually the other prohibitions are only awesome in Rabbanon. And the psukim that the Gemara brings are merely asmachtas, they're sort of references, allusions, but they're not actually the ultimate source for these things because they only are midrabanon. And what's the nafkamina, whether it's asa min haTorah or midrabanon, what practical differences it make to us? We keep everything. The nafkamina, says the Mishnah Berurah, in ezeh sofik or lemaiser or lahachme, that if you've got a sofik, that's the classic scenario of a nafkamina, that if it's a sofik in a deraisa, we are machme, and for a drabanon we make a sofik deraisa lechumra, sofik drabanon lekula. So if you're in a situation of doubt, then given this could be a deraisa, therefore one should try and be machme, as the Mishnah Berurah concludes, so if it's an issue of a drabanon in regarding, I don't know, ni'ilas hasandal, if you hold it's a drabanon, then you can be mekel. If you hold it's a deraisa, then you can be machme. You should be machme. But the Mishnah Berurah paskins l'maiseroi lahachme. Okay, now let's focus on the ni'ilas hasandal. What exactly included in the prohibition of not wearing shoes? So there are 3 opinions essentially in the Rishonim. The first is the opinion of the Rif and the Rosh, and they maintain that the only shoes that were sort of prohibited on Yom Kippur are leather shoes. Rashi, however, says that it refers to wooden shoes as well. And then there's a shit of the Bal HaMa'or, which anything really which is like a shoe-like is a problem. Now, let's take a look at the Aruch HaShulchan. This is in box number 2, and he brings these 3 opinions. Says the Aruch HaShulchan, this is again in Siman Tov Reish Yud Dalet, Sif Beis. Ni'ilas hasandal mikri inui. Wearing shoes or not wearing shoes is considered an inu k'she'ein holchin bay. So if you go without shoes, that's considered some degree of affliction, and therefore v'lochein also b'Yom Kippurim, to wear shoes on Yom Kippur is not allowed. V'yesh be'inyan zeh gimel shittas. There are 3 opinions as to what classifies as shoes. Shittas hatzuv Shulchan Aruch, the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch, which we'll come to soon, is the kol shel osa v'chol she'ena shel muta, that the only shoe that is prohibited is leather, real leather shoes, and anything which is not leather is muta. V'zeu das harif v'harosh. And here the Shulchan Aruch and the Tur are following the view of the Rif and the Rosh, 2 of the great Rishonim, that their view is that only leather shoes are prohibited on Yom Kippur. Then the Aruch HaShulchan carries on in Sif Gimel, Al Shittas Rashi, the Minal Shel Eitz Osa. that a wooden shoe is also as well. And so too that seems the opinion of Tosfos. So Rashi and Tosfos broaden the prohibition to extend it to wooden shoes, clogs, and things like that. Then in Sif Dalet, as ever, the question is, what does the Rambam hold? And that is debated. So let's, very interesting Aruch HaShulchan on this, before we come to the third opinion. This is the Aruch HaShulchan in Sif Dalet. Over Divrei HaRambam, Yesh Mokum Iyun. One can investigate it. It's not clear exactly what the Rambam holds. Most commentators on the Rambam say that the Rambam also maintains, like the Shulchan Aruch, that he's following the shit of the Rif and the Rosh, that only leather shoes are prohibited. And that, therefore, it's no brainer that the Shulchan Aruch is going to say, as we'll soon see, Asa linel sandal shel minal al ar, or minal shel ar, that you can't wear leather shoes, because the Shulchan Aruch is following, as he says in his Hakdama, the three main Rishonim, the Rif, the Rosh, and the Rambam, and therefore, if you've got the Rif and the Rosh who say that only leather shoes are prohibited, and it seems like the Rambam says that as well, so then it wouldn't be a surprise that the Shulchan Aruch follows that. Either way, he says that many commentators say that the Rambam also holds, like the Rif and the Rosh, that it's dafka leather shoes. V'lanivas daiti, but says the Aruch HaShulchan, I don't think that's what the Rambam holds. Lo mashma kein milashonoi. That doesn't seem to be exactly clear from the Lashon that the Rambam uses, Shekosov, because the Rambam says the following, and this is his expression, Osa linol minol v'sandal, this is the language of the Rambam, you're not allowed to wear a shoe or a sandal, afilu b'raglo echod, even on one foot, umutalotzeis b'sandal shasham, you can wear sandals made out of other materials, with shalgemi, rubber, and reeds and things like that. For korech odem beged al raglov, you can wrap material around your feet. For boy and go out with that. Shari koisharetz magir raglov or margishu yachav, because you can still feel, if you're just wearing some material around your shoes and you walk on the streets, you'll feel it. You'll feel as if you're barefoot. At kan l'shonei. Hurry, says the Aruch HaShulchan. Shehitzrich shaharegel targish b'yachifosa. The point of the Rambam is that the foot should feel sort of the hardness of the floor and should feel as if it was barefoot. V'shel eitz pshita shelo targish v'osa. And therefore, if you're wearing sort of good clogs, then you're not going to feel the hardness of the ground underneath you. V'nirli b'tayim delav mishum d'shel eitz mikri minal sharin chalitza pasuk ba'atzma. And it's not the reason why that he says that shel eitz is called a shoe, because the Rambam himself says in Hilchas Chalitza, in Hilchas Yibum, the shel eitz posel, that wearing leather shoes for chalitza purposes is not considered a shoe. At a time and nearly, therefore the reasoning of the Rambam, says the Aruch HaShulchan, is to Kippur Yom Kippurim have a time and mishum inui, since the whole objective of the 5 prohibitions is inui, that a person should afflict himself. Also, therefore, by wearing any sort of footwear where you don't feel the ground underneath you is therefore also. And therefore, if you're wearing material shoes, then that's okay, because you can feel the ground underneath you. That's considered inui. Masha'inken, if you're wearing eights, you don't really feel the ground underneath you. And therefore, the Aruch HaShulchan is of the view that the Rambam actually opines with Rashi and Tosfos, that says that it's not just leather shoes, but it's also wooden shoes which are prohibited. So far we have 2 opinions in the Rishonim. The Rif and the Rosh say leather shoes only are prohibited. Rashi, Tosfos, and according to the Aruch HaShulchan, the Rambam as well, say that wooden shoes are also prohibited. And then you've got the third opinion, which is brought by the Aruch HaShulchan in Sif Hey, Ayin Bach, there are those who have the custom to go barefoot. They are choshesh for the view of the Ban HaMa'or, to the maskana gam shel beged osa. Even wearing shoes of other materials are prohibited. Okay, so 3 opinions. Now the question is, what is the halacha? What does the Shulchan Aruch say? So the Shulchan Aruch in Tov Reish Yud Sif Beis says, osa linol sandal or mina shel ar. You cannot wear a shoe or a sandal made out of leather. Ava shel gemi or shel kash, beged, wearing of any other material is actually okay. So the Shulchan Aruch as mentioned earlier, paskins like the Rif and the Rosh, and therefore it's only leather shoes which are problematic. Now, the Mishnah Berurah says the following in Sif Cotton Hay. The kol she'ena shel ein nikra minal ela malbush, because anything which is not leather is not really called a shoe. It's just called a sort of item of clothing, which of course is not a problem to wear. You can wear a leather belt on Yom Kippur. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah, v'yesh me'achronim shemachmirim b'shel eitz. There are those who are machmir regarding wood, even if the wood has no leather in it whatsoever. And there are those who are machmir even more, not to wear shoes out of any material. And it's protecting the foot, and you can't feel the ground at all, and it's not considered inui. And therefore, wearing rubbers and things like that, one should be machmir. Even though you shouldn't protest if you see other people wearing sort of trainers and things like that, and many achronim are makel, they are lenient to follow the view of the Shulchan Aruch. And therefore the Mishnah Berurah says, if you can wear really just thin material, whatever it may be, whether it's socks or very thin materials, so the if you're going in the streets, of course you shouldn't wear leather shoes, but you should preferably wear material shoes which do not contain any leather or any wood or the firm protection. So the Mishnah Berurah says that. Now, the question really is, what about Crocs? And what about things like that, which of course are very popular and a lot of people do wear it? It depends very much on the above, because according to the Rif and the Rosh, no problem, it's only leather shoes which are asa. According to Rashi, it's only wooden shoes which are prohibited. The Balamar prohibits anything which is really shoe-like. So the question is, where do Crocs fit into all of this? So the truth is, this is a machlokas in achronim in a more contemporary poskim. Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach permits it. Reb Elyashiv prohibits it. Reb Elyashiv prohibits it, and really because he says, I've got in box number 5, because at the end of the day, it's probably quite similar to wooden shoes in as much as you can't feel the hardness of the ground underneath you. And people wear Crocs, on the contrary, they're very comfortable. People wear them out of choice throughout the year. And therefore, Rabbi Elyashiv prohibits wearing Crocs because you can't feel the koshi of the Oretz. It's not therefore considered inui, and he prohibits it. However, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach permits it. If you look in Halichas Shlomo in paragraph 5, min alayim she'enim shel shoes which are not made of leather, even though they may be very comfortable, one can wear those. And therefore, to wear trainers and any other non-leather shoe, Crocs and things like that, it says the Shlomo Zalman that one the minhag is to wear them even lechatchila. However, in Ha'ara Lamed Aleph, this is in Perek Hey Halachas Yud Zayin in Halicha Shlema, in the Ha'ara Lamed Aleph, which I've got here in the bottom of paragraph 5, he says, V'af al pi sheyesh machmirin shlo lech bohem mipnei shem noichim ve'ein nohem inui kol kach. Even though, like I've just said in the above, there are those lechatchila who can wear any type of non-leather shoes, like the Mishnah Berurah quotes, and he brings the Mekilim, the Mishnah Berurah we just read, Ein Shom. If it's possible and you've got an alternative, then one should try and be machmir. We're considered quite delicate, and therefore we don't try and be machmir, and therefore the Mishnah Berurah, the Shlomo Zalman says the minhag is to wear non-leather shoes and to wear Crocs, lechatchila, no problem. But if you have got an alternative, then that is preferable to do so. So, for example, I have these sort of slipper type materials, which if I walk to shul, I can feel the hardness of the ground below. And, it's one day a year, and therefore I try, and for many years I've been using those, and that certainly is the lechatchila, the ideal. But if one wants to wear Crocs, there is certainly what to rely on. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach permits it. But if there is an alternative where you don't feel that comfortable in them in terms of walking on the streets and you can feel the ground underneath you, then there is certainly room to be machmir. Just to finish off, there are exceptions nowadays regarding, in terms of wearing Ni'ilas HaSandal on Yom Kippur. The Shulchan Aruch says in Sif Gimel, in Tafresh Yudalad, Hachaya kol 30 yom muteres linoles hasandal. a lady who's given birth within the last 30 days is allowed to wear regular shoes, and so too a choyle, even if there's no danger involved. If someone's got a foot problem and they need to wear more sturdy shoes, they've only got leather shoes, that would be okay. Now, in the Halicha Shlema, he says, I've got it in the bottom box of the page, however, says Rosh Zalman, nowadays, these heterim of the Shulchan Aruch don't really apply to the chola and to the lady who's given birth, because there are so many alternatives where they can comfortably wear, and therefore preferably a woman who has given birth or a chola, if they can wear non-leather alternatives, that would be preferable. So, just to summarize, there are 5 inuyim on Yom Kippur. Achila shtia is 1, rechitza, sicha, nilas hasandal, and tashmish hamitza. Regarding nilas hasandal, there's a machlokus, achila and shtia and melacha is also in Torah, and there's an isakaris. The others machlokus whether or not they're drabonon or deraisa. 3 opinions in the Rishonim what shoes are prohibited and are included in ilas hasandal. The Rif and the Rosh say leather shoes, Rashi say wooden shoes, and the Balamara says anything which is not a shoe. Debates what the Rambam holds. Does he hold like the Rif and the Rosh, or according to the Aruch HaShulchan, he holds like Rashi and Tosfos that wooden shoes are also prohibited. And in terms of practical halacha, we can be the Shulchan Aruch paskins that dafka leather shoes are problematic, and one should try and be machmir if one can to avoid even very comfortable shoes such as wooden shoes and things like that. But in terms of Crocs and things like that, the Mishnah Berurah says the olam seem to be mekel, and the Halicha Shlema says the same thing, and haminag leilech bohem lechatchila, to use them lechatchila. So therefore, there's certainly what to rely on to wear Crocs. But those who want to be machmir and to wear thinner materials, slipper-like materials, where you feel the ground, the koishi haaretz, the hardness of the ground underneath, then that would seem to be a lechatchila.